Hey everybody, this is a special report due to the pandemic caused by the coronavirus. Let's talk pandemic planning. This is going to be a multiple part series as there's a lot of information to discuss. I've done a lot on disaster recovery and business continuity planning over the years. Now we're going to be getting into pandemic planning. Let's start with a notice on guidance for pandemic planning. The FFIEC being the Federal Financial Institution Examination Council. The council is a formal U.S. government agency body that is composed of banking regulators and oversight organizations that are empowered to prescribe uniform principles, standards, and report forms to promote uniformity in the supervision of financial institutions. They basically tell the banking industry as a collective how everything's supposed to work, what they're supposed to do, and to make sure they all do it. Those banking regulators that the organization is made up are the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the NCUA, National Credit Union Administration, and the OCC, or Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. The FFIEC released guidance on pandemic planning, not just recently, but also back in 2006. Yeah, 2006, 14 years ago. If you recall, in 2006, the world was dealing with the avian influenza, H5N1, better known as bird flu. Well, what was in that release? A very important part included in that release was the influenza pandemic preparedness that was included again in the 2006 release. And we're going to actually cover that in more detail in upcoming videos. Today, I'm going to hit the highlights on the FDIC Interagency Advisory Financial Institution Letter, or FIL-25-2006. You can Google and find it yourself if you want to read it. This letter was released March 15, 2006. What did it say? The FDIC, the Federal Reserve Board, the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, and the Office of Thrift Supervision are issuing the attached interagency advisory to raise awareness about the threat of a pandemic influenza outbreak and similar events and their potential impact on the delivery of critical financial services. It was to put the banking industry on alert that they are to have pandemic planning. And yes, they also included the interagency advisory. The highlights of the letter were to raise awareness about the threat of a pandemic influenza outbreak and its potential impact on the delivery of critical financial services. Now keep in mind, this was 2006. This was before the first iPhone. And remember, even in 2007 when that first iPhone came out, well, can you believe 16 gigabytes was the max? We started with 4 gigabytes, what most of us bought. 16 to 4 gigabytes was all you could have for storage on that original iPhone. Granted, there wasn't nearly as much stuff to put on your iPhone yet because it was the very beginning of the app and app store. But you had access to the internet. On a screen you could actually see it on, even though that screen seems small nowadays. And it could only handle 128 megabytes of memory. And the camera was 2 megapixels. So terrible, no filters, no Snapchat. But a phone with a camera and internet capabilities. But no way to do banking yet. But what was happening is an awareness of the possibility of there being a pandemic. Another highlight of the letter, it stated that on November 1st, 2005, the White House issued a national strategy for pandemic influenza, which discusses the threat and potential impact of a pandemic influenza outbreak and outlines financial institutions' roles and responsibilities should an outbreak occur. The current threat originates from an outbreak of avian flu in Asia. It is unknown whether an avian virus will result in a human pandemic. The widespread nature of this virus in birds and the possibility that it may mutate over time raises concerns that it will become transmissible among humans, with potentially devastating consequences. Financial institutions should consider this potential pandemic and similar threats in their event response and contingency strategies. Please distribute this information to appropriate personnel in your institution. I want to pause for a second and say, I believe that the agencies, the banks, the credit unions, and the industry as a whole are doing an incredible job of handling this situation. The OCC and their recommendations that recently came out. The NCUA and their recommendations that recently came out. What we're hearing from ECHO, and definitely from NACHA having 2 recent updates and changes. Plus the banks, the credit unions, the corporate credit unions, the bankers' banks, the payment associations, they're all doing an outstanding job. But back then, obviously, everyone saw a need for pandemic planning, and I'm grateful they did, and that so far, it looks like those plans are working. We have one more letter we will dive into in more detail about what pandemic planning is and what should be in your plan in the next video. With all that is happening right now, we all really need to stick together and find solutions that work. If there's an issue you are facing, if there's a problem that is unexpected caused by the virus pandemic, then message me or email me, kevin@pavementsprofessor.com. This series is being put together at multiple requests, and we will do our best to get the information recorded and made available to you. If you're restricted from traveling and in need of some education or continuing education credits, we're also working on some solutions as well. Let us know how we can help you through this. We are here to serve you.